Hello and welcome to the Responsive Family Sleep Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Hawley, holistic sleep coach, lactation consultant, peaceful parenting educator, and mom. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the conflicting sleep info, frustrated with sleep information that just plain felt wrong, or searched desperately for a truly gentle and responsive sleep approach, then you are in the right place. In each episode, we'll be answering your most pressing baby and toddler sleep questions, busting those sleep myths, and helping you understand truly developmental, biologically normal baby and toddler sleep, plus encouraging you to trust your intuition along the way. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a really common challenge for a lot of families, and that is when daycare naps are a challenge, right? What can you do, right? You're not in control of them. How can you troubleshoot daycare naps when they're just not getting what they need from their daytime sleep? So this is a tricky topic. I want to be really clear because daycares have varying capacity, interest and willingness, and also logistic and legal abilities to troubleshoot naps with you. So that's just something right up front, right? Like they can't always do what your child needs, unfortunately. And different daycares have really different willingness and ability to sort of think outside the box and go above and beyond to support naps. And I say willingness and ability because they're like logistical things, right? Depending on your state, there could be legal rules that they're following. Like there are states where you legally cannot wake a child up from a nap, which is kind of mind-boggling, but it's true. And there are like logistical things around space, right? If your baby needs a really quiet napping environment, but they don't have an alternative napping environment, then like there's nothing they can do. And then there's willingness. I have seen a lot of different snapshots of daycare experiences around this over the years. And I've just been wowed by what some daycares are willing to do to troubleshoot and think outside the box and really try to problem solve here. And then I have been frustrated right along with the parents I'm supporting around daycare's just complete inability and unwillingness to dialogue here and to do anything outside of what they normally do. So all this to say is, while there are lots of challenges and limitations around meeting a child's needs for naps at daycare when it's not coming easily, sometimes it is specifically that environment, that daycare, not all daycares. Sometimes that's helpful to know, sometimes not, right? Because I've seen people switch daycares and it make a big difference. And not everybody can switch daycares. That is not a realistic option when you're having nap struggles for a lot of families. But just highlighting that I've seen people switch environments and get more of what they need. And so if that's on your radar, definitely something to be very mindful of, making sure it's going to do what you want it to do, with that transition. But since for most folks that's not an option, there are endless daycare options with openings that you can switch to. I think it's really important that we think, how can we make the best of this situation? How can we troubleshoot and work with daycare to get things a bit better? So the first thing is that they're generally doing their best, right? And we want to see them as a partner because they have a big impact on your kiddo. They're with them all day during the week, right? During the time that they're at daycare. And so how can we think of this as troubleshooting together and communicating well around naps? And for that to happen, we need to identify the problems, right? And that comes from asking the right questions, from really coming in curious and asking what they're noticing, maybe what's happening in the room, what's the environment like, where the problem is in more detail, because there's lots of different ways that daycare naps can be a struggle, right? And so commonly, I see kiddos that have trouble falling asleep, right? Who have really short naps for various reasons. So they're not getting enough sleep. I see kiddos with nap schedules and rhythms that really don't meet their needs for various reasons. And then a little less commonly, I see kiddos that have way too much sleep at daycare, right? And that's where it's really hard when the simple solution is wake them up and then daycare isn't legally allowed to do it. That's not all states as far as I know, but some states. So we have different problems, and those problems can be caused from different things. So you might have a kiddo who isn't napping well at daycare, but it could be because they're having trouble falling asleep. They need more support. Could be because they need help extending a nap, and is someone on hand to do that. It could be the environment is too overstimulating or distracting, and so they really have trouble switching off, right, and sleeping. It could be the naps are mistimed, right, and so they haven't built enough sleep pressure, or they're getting really overtired and dysregulated and having trouble relaxing into sleep. So, we don't know. We don't know until we ask, right? Are they having trouble falling asleep or having trouble with the transfer? Are they having trouble because they're being woken up? Or, is the environment really perfect and they're just not sustaining sleep? So questions, just asking for more details, asking more about the rhythms and routines and what else is happening in the daycare environment at that time. That's going to give you more information. And when we have that more information, then you can start to brainstorm. If they're expecting them to fall asleep completely on their own, and that's not something your kiddo does, maybe they can feed them to sleep. Maybe they can rock them for a few minutes. If it's a noise distractibility kind of waking them up thing, maybe there's a quieter place. Maybe you can try putting them in the most quiet corner of the room and trying a sound machine, right? If the naps are kind of all bunched together at weird times, maybe they can spread them out more. Maybe we can build some more sleep pressure so they're actually tired, and see if that helps get better naps, right? If you're in a state that they're allowed to wake your child up, make a case for capping a nap if that's, the issue, right? They're napping for 2 hours in the morning and then they won't nap again. Well, most kids don't need a 2-hour morning nap, right? If they're napping multiple times a day. So first we identify, and then we start bringing some concrete ideas in, and also ask your daycare. Say, hey, is there a way that you could help extend the nap? Is there a way that we can try a different nap rhythm? What would work with what else is going on in their day? And so really dialoguing with them can be helpful, bringing some ideas, but also getting their input. Sometimes it can be really helpful to sort of tie what's happening at daycare into what you see at home. And this just helps with them understanding and getting a bit more buy-in and, seeing the big picture. Because if kiddo seems fine at daycare and it is kind of a pain to do what you're asking, they're more likely to want to do it if you're like, oh my gosh, but you're not seeing this kiddo at home, right? You're not seeing this after the whole day is played out. And this is what we're seeing. And so I find that can sometimes be helpful to sort of connect the dots a little bit, to show why it's important and why you're asking for, what you're asking for. So, daycare naps, childcare naps, they can really be a challenge, especially for the highly sensitive kiddos or the really alert, highly distractible kiddos. And I find that these situations tend to be more amped up in the baby and like the younger classrooms where kiddos have more fluid nap schedules. There's more needs, there's more going on. And so for some littles, like once they're in a solid 1 nap a day toddler class, they nap better, right? Because the whole rhythm of the day is designed around this, midday, early afternoon nap. And they often are able to create a more nap conducive environment. And there's a bit of like collective nap pressure in that everyone is napping at the same time. And so that can really help for our kiddos that struggle, with daycare naps. Now, when your daycare nap rhythm doesn't mesh with your child's nap rhythm, that can be really, really tricky. And sort of the flip side there is true, is it's almost harder when they're in toddler rooms. And there is that really defined one nap versus it's sometimes a bit easier when you're in the more fluid napping of the younger baby spaces. But even then, sometimes there are nap times that just kind of scratch my head, and I'm like, why are the nap times 10 and 1, right? Or, whatever they are, don't really seem to make sense for a lot of nap rhythms. So daycare nap rhythms are not always optimized to the ages, in my experience. So that's a tricky thing to deal with. But being specific, right? Like, hey, can we try for naps at these times? Can you try to space them out a bit more? Can we try one a bit earlier? And just seeing, right, if they are able to accommodate to get a rhythm that works a little bit better for your kiddo. So daycare definitely comes with compromise when it comes to napping. There are limitations. They don't always have the staff or the space to do what your child needs. And a lot of times they really are quite willing to try out some different things as long as we can be clear and realistic in what you're asking. So I encourage you to, ask questions, give a few simple things to try, ask for their opinion, and see if you can get those daycare naps just a little bit better to support better sleep for everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode left you feeling more informed, confident, and encouraged on your sleep journey. And just a reminder before you go that nothing in this episode is individualized to your specific sleep situation, nor is it to be taken as medical advice. Take what resonates, ignore what doesn't, and check with your healthcare provider about any medical concerns. Take a moment to subscribe to this podcast so that you'll never miss an episode. And take a moment to rate, review, or share an episode you love on social media. All of that helps parents just like you find me, this podcast, and this gentle and responsive sleep information. I'll see you next time.